Getting your students to enjoy a group project is the holy grail of teaching. So in today's video, I'm talking about how I go about creating group project designs in order to ensure my students actually enjoy doing it, but still learn a lot by doing it. Let's get started. Hey there, it's Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is all about teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for college instructors, along with a few videos about grad school life more generally. Today it's all about the group project though, because I noticed that, I tend to use a group project at least for every course I teach, but I know you always hear like, oh God, I hate group projects, they're so terrible, from students, right? And I was that student too. A lot of times I was frustrated because I put so much effort into it and I felt I wasn't getting it back sometimes from my peers and my classmates. But I do feel I found certain ways to ensure that group projects go pretty well in my courses. I've had multiple semesters where my students in their course assessment that I had them complete, which I go over how I create those, down below in the link. But I basically have this assessment that I have the students fill out at the end of the semester, and whenever I ask, which activity did you feel you enjoyed the most, but also learned from the most, by far and away, I get the group project as the answer. And so I have a whole blog post about actually describing that particular group project. It's in my literature courses. But then again, I also have a blog post and a video about creating that course assessment. So let's go ahead and get into how I suggest designing your group projects in order to ensure, it's not that hated or frustrating experience for your students. Okay? And so the first thing is make sure students get to pick their groups. Okay? Do not assign partners, because I know that's a way of ensuring that cliquey students aren't in the same group and not getting their work done or whatever, but I really do not recommend it because you never know what type of personalities will accidentally end up together if you assign them yourself, and that can be just a terrible project because student A and student B turns out they argue like cats and dogs. Student C is so anxious to be with people they don't know that they barely say anything even though they have great thoughts. So step one is I always ensure that students can pick their group members. And even more importantly, I try to keep the groups as small as possible so there's less personalities clashing together potentially, right? So in my courses, we have a cap of 30 students. And so I do groups of 3, right? So 6 groups of 3 works out really well rather than doing, any higher numbers. And so, I give them the class time to go, talk around, find group mates who they feel they can work well with, and also who are interested in the same, in my case, books that are, taught during that class in that semester. Now, along similar veins, my next 2 tips are to ensure that your design is really flexible as far as completing the assignment goes, and also that you spread out the deadlines so that students can pick the times that work best for them. So on that first part, for example, in my group project, students have to design a literary analysis activity that their classmates are going to go through, that they're going to lead their classmates through in a 30-minute, activity. But it's all up to them to choose how to design that activity. They can choose what topics to cover in connection to the book. They can choose if they want to make it a small group project, a whole class discussion. Is there going to be a quiz involved? Is there going to be using the marker board or the chalkboard, the projector? Are they going to have to go on a scavenger hunt around campus, or at least along the building, not campus? It's really up to them to decide how they're going to design their activity. And the sky's the limit. I would love to see unique ones, but if they wanted to, they can just facilitate a discussion of the whole class with a series of questions. It could be as simple as that too. And so giving that flexibility, tell students, I want you to have the power here. Do something that you would be interested in doing as a student if you were the one sitting there having to go through this project with other leaders there. But you're the ones leading this activity instead. So the power is yours, the sky's the limit, go for it as far as what they're actually doing. And then as far as the deadline goes, since I basically have 2 groups per book if I assign, for example, 5 books, right? And so, I have students choose, which book do you want to present on? And do you want to present first or second? And so obviously, what I end up doing is I just randomize, I give groups 1 through 10, right? They each have a number, and then I use a random number generator, and I say, okay, group 7, you choose first. What book? And do you want to go first or second? Click it again. Okay, group 2, which book and when do you go? And so they have the choice to see, okay, like, I know that I have a big game or I have an event I'm going to during this week. Do you mind, partners, if we do it sometime else, right? Or I know that my season ends on this week. I prefer to do it after that point in time. I know I'm going home for a wedding on this weekend. Can we, right? So you get the picture here. So I basically tell students, obviously you might not luck out if you're that 10th person, that 10th group to choose. But I do, for the most part, have it. I don't want all groups to go in the same 1 or 2 weeks because you never know what kind of conflicts there are in scheduling. And also, it's a lot to do in that short period of time. Like, I'd rather have some distance between them, right? And so in this case, I feel that flexibility works really well. And then the key element here, though, in your assignment design is to ensure that a good portion, if not the majority, is an individual grade versus a group grade, right? And so I feel like the one thing that students always say when they're frustrated is, I got a lower grade than I deserved because my group mates didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so I got screwed because of that fact, right? So if you've heard that before, give this video a thumbs up. But basically, for me, I say, okay, well, that's not going to be a major concern in the group project because for this one in particular, half their grade comes from, yes, the group element that they do. So they have to write out a description of their activity and a rationale for why they designed it that way, right? And so that they write one of those and they submit it, and then they get the same grade, all 3 of them. But then the other half of their grade is individual based. So when they lead the activity, if one presents much more strongly, they ask really good questions, they walk around the room and listen in and kind of offer insight into small group activities, etc., well, they're going to get a high A, right, in that part of the activity. If their fellow group member, though, only asks 1 question out of the 10, or is, while the other 2 are walking around listening in and, kind of chiming in, the third one's basically just standing in front of the projector waiting for time to pass for the whole group discussion, their grade will be lower than their partners because they're not putting as much effort into leading the activity, right? And then the final 10% of that grade comes from a reflection that they write after the activity ends. And each of them do that reflection. So half the grade is, that one thing that they wrote together, right? But the other half is all designed by what they do as an individual in this project, right? So there's less risk involved because only half the grade requires, the work of their 2 partners, right? And so I want you to think about how you can design your group project. So at least a portion of it, I'd say at least 30%. But if you can get closer to 50, even 60, I would say, that's based on only their own individual work, that again can really help students say, all right, well, I'm not totally dependent on my partners who may not do the work that I want them to do or the work that's on the same level as what I tend to accomplish. And on the flip side, the students who are like, oh, well, I love group projects because they can do all the work and I just get the A anyways or the B anyways without putting much effort in. Well, now they know, oh, well, I mean, actually a good portion of it or a huge chunk is due to my own work. So I better put some effort into this to make sure I don't fail while my partners both pass, right? So I think, that's really the key element of designing a group project is making sure the whole grade isn't based off group work. Only a portion is. Right? And so if you have your own ideas for how to design a group project, let me know in the comments below. And again, I'll have a few links down there to do 2 different group project assignments, as well as a few other related videos and blog posts to this topic. All right? So I'll see you next week.